Thank you for coming today, everyone. Today's in-depth training class, we're going to be talking about estimate entry. Basically, how to go through and create a new estimate, some of the tips and tricks and extra features that you have when creating an estimate, and just go through some of the commonly asked questions that people have when they are entering in a new estimate. So from Control, what we'll do is the third button on the set of buttons here is the New button. So all we have to do is pull this down and go to New Estimate. And that's how we create a new estimate. So starting from this screen here, the very first thing that you should see at the very top is the company and the description field. Both of them are pretty simple. The company is going to be who this estimate is done for. What I can do is, if I know the company name that I'm writing this estimate for, I can go ahead and just start typing in the company name, and as long as I have at least 3 characters, if I type in that, the rest will autofill. Let's say I have more than one company that has that particular first few characters. I also get a drop-down where I can search through the other companies that are related to that to be able to pick a company for the first few characters that I pick. Well, let's say maybe I don't know everything about this particular company. What I can do is I can click on the Explorer screen here, and that brings me up to the Company Explorer. So I can search for maybe a specific character in the name. So maybe I don't know the first few letters of the company name, but I know what it ends with, or I know a character in the name. I can use this particular screen to search for the company by, let's see, I want to have the word company somewhere in it. So star company, and that would bring up all the companies that have the word company in the name. Also, if I'm doing an estimate for a company that doesn't exist yet, I can click on the New Company button to be able to pull up the New Company screen, create the new company, and have it be assigned to this estimate automatically. The next section is a description. The description is just an overall view of what this particular estimate is for. Is it going to be for a new grand opening banners? Is it going to be for 2 wall vinyl prints? The description is just going to be what the job is for. More often than not, if you don't enter a description, what the job will do is it'll just pull the description of the very first line item that you create for this particular estimate. So for now, those are the 2 main fields that we need to worry about at the top section. So what we'll do now is we're just going to go through the different tabs and look and see what some of the interesting features are for each tab and how you can modify some of these features. So the very first tab that we have open is the Company tab. What I have here is I have the company, again, for this particular estimate. I have the contact. So right now what it does is it normally pulls the primary contact for the particular company. But maybe I'm doing this estimate for a different contact within the same company. I can pull this option down and select a different contact. One neat little trick is if I see that the contact that ordered this particular estimate isn't in the system yet, what I can do is the contact button here is actually a button. So I can click on contact here, and I can do a new, I can edit the existing contact, I can do a new contact, I can clone the contact to create a new contact. So using this, I have a quick shortcut to easily add a new contact if the one contact that I'm looking for this estimate doesn't exist. Also, from the screen, I have access to the company's account information. So from here, I can just view what the payment terms are, the tax classes, if the customer has a credit, a balance. I can just view some basic account information for the company that's selected. In addition to any flags and notes that were created on the company record, I can see those from here as well. The last thing that we can do on the Company tab that's really interesting is I can change the address that I'm going to bill to. So by default, it's just going to pull the company's billing address. But maybe I want to bill it to somewhere else whenever I go to send off the invoice. I can pull down the option here for invoice address, and I can bill it to a different address within the company. I can create a new address to bill to. So if we're going to bill this company to a different address than their standard billing address, I can change that information with this field right here. And that's all the main information that we have access to from the Company tab. Next over is going to be the Item tab. And this is, the item tab is where the bulk of the information that you're going to be entering in on your estimate is from. This is where you actually go through and add the different products that are going to go into your estimate. So we'll go through a few of the simple products, but the main thing that we're going to focus on are some of the options that you have to kind of modify the list of products and to be able to bring in items from other orders. So the first thing that we're going to look at right now is I'm seeing my list of every product within the system. So I see everything broken down by artwork design, digital prints, have all my digital prints, miscellaneous has all the miscellaneous items. I see everything broken down within the system, but I see all the products. What most people do, though, is they have a set of products that they use from their main menu, which is called the quick product. So this option down here, View Quick Products, changes the display to show, instead of just all the products, it shows me only the products that are in my quick product list. And that is normally what most people will see on the quick product list that they have on their home screen. So then now I can just click on a product from here to add it to the particular job that we're working with. So if I click back to View All Products, I'll get back to my regular product list. All that you need to do to add an item to your estimate is open up the item. So we're going to say we'll add a simple roll sign print. So digital prints, roll sign print. So we just double click the item to add that item to our estimate. And then from here, this is where most of the entry is done. You just go through the items as you would normally and enter in the information that you want to. So you tell it the size of the sign, the number of quantities that you're getting, what material. All the information for the job goes on the particular line item that we had selected. So I'm just going to enter in some basic information. So we'll do a 2x3 banner. Get a price, and we'll click OK. So that adds my first item to my particular estimate. I can now add, I can keep adding new items, I can add other categories of items, I can go through and add however many items that I need on this particular estimate, I just keep adding. But the neat feature from here now is if I'm showing the full product list, I have options up here for copy new line item and copy all items. So let's say there's a particular line item on another estimate that you wanted to bring over, but you didn't want to clone the entire estimate. What you can do is you can click on the Copy New Line Item, and what that does is that opens up a Line Item Explorer that will then let me view all the items within the system. So I can come over here to the top transaction filter. I want to see estimates. And I'm going to refresh this. And what that does is that shows me every single line item that's ever been entered for the other estimates in the system. So I can go through and select an item and click on OK. And what it will do is it will bring that item over to the estimate with all the information that was entered in on the previous estimate that we pulled it from. And it also will include any child items that were part of that item. So I brought over the rigid sign print from another estimate, which is now a part of my estimate, but I also have the child item that went with it. The last thing that we can do on the item tab is you can go through and delete items, you can clone items, you can move items around on the estimate to have it ordered the way that you want. Because maybe I want to have my rigid sign print as my first item. So what I can do is I can have that item selected, and then at the top I have options here to move up, move down, clone an item. So if I want to go through and create the item again, I can select the item, hit clone, and what that will do is that opens up the form, a new form with all the information that I had cloned, and I can change the information here because let's say the customer wants a banner with a different material. I can go through and change this to another material. Click OK. So now I have another item that's pulled from the initial item that I cloned it from, but now it's its own item with its own information. The last thing that I can do is you can demote and promote items. So what you can do is you can actually take an item and make it a child item of another item. So if I take this roll sign print, I can demote it, which puts it as line 2A now, so it's under the other item. So using the options at the top, I can move items around and order them in such a way that the estimate is displayed the way that I want it to be displayed. Next is going to be the Totals tab. The Totals tab has a few very useful features. The main one being, I can go through here and say the primary salesperson. So what it does is the system will pull the salesperson for this estimate from the company's record. But maybe for this particular estimate, somebody else actually had done the selling, so you want to change the salesperson for the estimate. You can change that right here. You can also change the secondary salesperson, other salespeople, if there's more than one that's allowed on this particular estimate. On the Totals tab, this is also where you get to specify a PO number if there was a PO number associated with the estimate that was sent to you. And then also, I have access to my taxes. So I can see the taxes here. If I click the button there, I can drill down and see how the taxes are broken up. So my total taxes are $12.65, but I have $10.85 from Louisiana and then $1.80 from the East Baton Rouge taxes. So clicking on that button, I can view the taxes broken down for this entire estimate. The next tab that we want to look at is going to be the Notes tab. The notes have basically, there's two types of notes. There is estimate invoice notes, which the notes that are entered here will show up on the estimate. And then you have internal use notes that don't show up anywhere. They're just kept on the estimate for purely internal purposes. So you can have people go back, open up the estimate to review those notes, but the customer would never see them. I also have access to, on the right side here, what we call speed notes. So what that means is if I click on this note here, I have a note down here that is my speed note. If I double click the note while I'm in this section, what it does is it adds that speed note to the estimate. So what I can do is I can create and edit speed notes as I need to. So if there's a note that I use all the time, rather than having to retype it every time I do an estimate, what I can do is I can create a speed note and type that note in here, and that way I have access to that speed note anytime I'm doing an estimate. I can easily add that just by double-clicking on it from the menu here, so I can add in however many speed notes that I want to be able to quickly access those notes whenever I'm doing this particular estimate. And that's all there is on the Notes tab. To go with that, I have the Estimate Greeting tab. A lot of it is the same information that you would see on the Notes tab, except the greeting prints at the top of the estimate, and essentially it's just a little welcome note, a little thank you note that appears at the top of your estimate, just greeting the particular customer that you're sending the estimate to. And you have access to a different set of speed notes here that work the same way that the Notes field does. I can go through and add new speed notes, and then if I double click on that note, it'll add that note to my estimate greeting section. The last thing that you really need to worry about that's from the estimate screen is the Parts tab. Clicking on this will show you all the parts that were estimated from adding the items that we had done earlier. So I'll see all my line items here. I got my rigid sign print, my roll sign print, and it has all the different parts that go into making that job, so I can kind of review my estimate to make sure that everything that I selected is being added in correctly to my estimate. Once all that information is ready, all I have to do now is go over here to Save, and then Save as Estimate. And what that will do is that assigns estimate number 572, so it assigns it the next number. That estimate is now ready within the system. I can go through and print out my estimate reports. I can go through and can edit the estimate to make any changes if I need to. All the information I have access to from an estimate are now ready to be used here. The last thing I want to cover, though, is there's a couple extra features that we have that we can turn on to make entering estimates even easier. If I go up to Setup, System Setup, I have access on the left side here to default estimate notes. So I can go in and set a default note and a default greeting that I want to appear on my particular estimate. So what that does then is instead of having to remember to add in my notes, add in my greeting every time, I can actually type in that information on this default note section, and that way it's automatically being added every time I go through and do a new estimate. And that is really a lot of the main features that you'll see when you're going to enter in a new estimate.